Okay, we're back. We're live. We're here for the last show of Monday. We're calling this ThinkTech TV. We're also calling it Monday Afternoon Discussion. That's MAD for short, MAD. Okay, a new world of astronomical engineering with Sung Choi, Assistant Dean. I get that right, Assistant Dean of the College of Engineering at UH Manoa in Holmes Hall, where God lives. Yeah, right?
So they say. It's an old enough building.
So, you know, just looking at it from the School of Engineering or engineering point of view, and engineering is such a, you know, large area and so dynamic and so many things are happening, and you get to see that. What is the latest technology? What is the latest engineering in building a 30-meter telescope on top of Mauna Kea?
So, 30-meter telescope. Let's quantify that. First of all, remember, that's 30 meters wide. That's the diameter of the lens. Last time I threw a football, it barely went 30 yards.
It's true, you'd have trouble throwing a football that far.
30 yards is a long way. You talk about professional athletes running the 40-yard sprint, and it takes them somewhere between 4 to 5 seconds. So let's say 30 yards, and we kind of interpolate that, and it's like, well, 3 to 4 seconds. That's a long run, right? And the fact that there's no way you're going to be able to build one single mirror to be that wide, which means there must be a lot of little sequential mirrors that make up this 30-meter behemoth that you're talking astronomical engineering. That's a pretty great feat. You know, I mean, we got all this autonomous vehicles, self-driving stuff. You know, we're not going to be doing anything anymore. We're just going to have to sit there like those Socrates and Plato, and we can think what we want, and everything else will be done for us, like the little Roomba still cleaning the rooms. And they're going to make this 30-meter telescope so we can figure out if there are other planets that emulate us. Or are we emulating them? One of the two, right? But it's interesting feat, and I think it corresponds very well to your MAD acronym for this session.
Well, I guess, let me back up for a minute. Astronomy,
yeah.
Okay, as opposed to engineering. Nobody ever built a Roomba with astronomy. You know, astronomy is Galileo. It's trying to figure out where the planets are in the solar system. We already found that out. Why do we need astronomy anymore? Isn't that already done?
No. I still go back to the definition I gave you about science versus engineering. Science means it's something that's already there, and we're just trying to figure out answers for it. Just because Mount Everest happens to be the tallest mountain on Earth doesn't mean it wasn't the tallest mountain on Earth maybe a couple 100,000 years ago. We just had no damn idea it was the tallest mountain. Or the Marianas Trench being the deepest point in the ocean. We had no idea. So we had engineers make these little vehicles or technologies so we can go there to the heights or to the depth and figure out what it was. I think it's the same thing. Astronomy, or the study of the planets, the stars, everything out there in that pitch black darkness, at least from where we stand in Hawaii. It might be a little gray in some of the other large cities in the world, but hey, it is a frontier that has not been discovered yet. And I think figuring out how to manipulate the physical sciences, the engineering techniques, and trying to send a little rover vehicle on Mars and see what it's like and figure out if there was water there. And now what they're thinking about with NASA is they're trying to see if they can send a quadcopter-like thing so they can cover more space and take more photos of Mars. Now, if we're doing all this stuff, it's an evolution of how we discover new data. Maybe we will make a rocket that can go, I don't know, a couple of trillion, billion, whatever, light years, but be able to send data back before we go through our fourth life or something.
Really.
You know, I mean, we're not a video game, right? We can't just continuously...
Someday we might be.
Yeah, we might be, but as of right now, I know is we have one life, and usually a life, it spans somewhere between 50 to 100 years, Well, who's the oldest guy that passed away? 120 or 119?
Yeah.
So somewhere in that range. So it's getting a little longer, but it's still a finite number. And I think the key is to see if we can discover as many things as we can before we give our little diary or a notebook to the next generation and say, hey, go find the other places where we left all the little pukas because we had no idea what it was.
Let me offer a reaction to that, and it's somewhat philosophical, is that, man has always been an inquiring animal. I mean, that distinguishes us from other mammals on the face of the earth. And we've always looked at the heavens, always done that.
Yep.
And we looked at the heavens for spiritual, respite. We look at the heavens for navigation. We're always looking at the heavens, and maybe that's part of the human condition, because it takes us away from our life on Earth, and it gives us new ideas, new imagination. It takes us further than we could have gone before. That's out of Star Trek. You know? and this is part of humanity. It's part of the intellectual process of humanity that we look up and that we try to figure out what's up there, and therefore determine where we fit in a much larger system. And for that reason, we need to have astronomical engineering.
Yep.
We need to figure it out. And we've made remarkable things since the first flight on the moon.
Oh, of course,
I remember that like yesterday. It was 1968.
What, 50 years ago?
Yeah, right, 69, something in there.
Somewhere in that
It
67,
was like,
68,
it really
69.
can be done. I mean, it was like unbelievable that we could do this. And so it's encouraging to think we can go to Mars now, and that UH can be involved, as so heavily it is in the Mars trip. We aspire. Mankind, humankind aspires. And somehow the heavens are a big part of that aspiration.
Well, the word aspires, I think, is the perfect way of describing this. We're trying to understand new things. Obviously, as you said, in a philosophical sense, humans were meant to be curious. We ask questions, we break things, we put it together. We do things differently than a lot of other mammals or animals do. So there must be a reason why we're doing this. It's very odd. We seem to fear the darkness, but at the same time, we need to explore that darkness. Maybe that's why we invent lights, so we can look into that darkness.
Right.
But there's something there where there is that innate curiosity to learn. And we got to figure out, if we went to 4, we got to figure out what 5 is. We got to figure out what 6 is. And I think that vastness of the space is a great exploration area. I mean, look at it. We as you know, I work with robots that go underwater. We don't know more than maybe 10, 20% of what's underwater, but we're more interested in things that are more beyond our reach, like space. What is that planet 5,432? And we want to know what that planet is and what kind of makeup it has. And of course, our final justification is, well, we're ruining this one, so we got to go find another one.
Yeah, really. Well, that kid, what's his name? Christopher Lindsay.
Oh, yeah.
Out of
You had him on the show, right? Yeah.
Yeah, he discovered a planet, or an exoplanet, but a planet. And kids have this, innately, they have this sense of curiosity, and part of kids' science and STEM education is up there. It's that aspiration. The other thing I wanted to mention, and you can be much closer to this than me, is that when we look at astronomy, we look at a kind of universal science.
No.
It was thus many, many moons ago, and it's all around the world. When you look at these telescope consortia, they come from everywhere. Every country somehow involved, either in building it or buying pieces of it. And so, there are astronomers everywhere, just as there have always been, And, they may not be so good on nuclear energy, but they all attend to astronomy.
No, I think that's great. I mean, it's also this sense of competition that we have. And I my wish is I would hope to see more of that competitive nature, because competition obviously breeds excellence. And I love the fact that we have so many more kids participating in all these STEM activities. But I hope they still understand that it is still a race. And usually it's the one that finishes first that gets recognized.
What's the race? I'm sure.
Oh, the race is getting more information, getting more data, having more knowledge. Somebody must know everything. It's obviously not you and me, because you and I are sitting here having a mad discussion, so, right? But, and the fact that we see so many younger kids, and, you know, a good way of justifying that was seeing the science fair and the robot tournaments, and seeing that creativity that comes up. So the students getting exposed to all these different sciences, the technologies, the engineering methodology on how to solve things, maybe infusing that a little bit more with the arts, the music, the sports, coming up with really creative, innovative answers is the way that they're gonna discover that next planet beyond Mars, or the universe beyond, you know, where we are, and who knows?
Yeah, and what we discover up there, we can use, at least to some extent, down here.
Of course.
I'll never forget Tang. Remember Tang?
Oh yeah, that artificial orange juice. Oh yeah, of course. That addictive orange juice.
So what about UH? UH is, seems to me heavily engaged in astronomy. And IFA is a strong school with a lot of international connections.
Oh, of course. Institute for Astronomy has a big presence at UH Manoa. They're doing a lot of work with the 30-meter telescope, with the designs of these things. So now they have connections with the engineering school. We're looking at a lot of the adaptive mirroring controls, so they can be moved around quicker than if we were to adjust it by hand. So that's a big part of engineering, mechanical as well as electrical. We're also looking at the manufacturing processes of how to make these mirror components. Because, you know, like we said at the beginning, you're not making a one-piece 30-meter diameter
Can't do that.
mirror, right?
Yeah.
So obviously these are being made about a foot apart, or foot a piece, and that I think comes out to, they said something like 491 pieces or something, and they all have to have the right curvature so you can fit
They're not
it in.
just flat
No, they're
mirrors.
not flat. They're not flat. This is a curved, you know, concave a lens.
Exactly the
That's
right curve in it.
Exactly the right lens, and the fact that you have adaptive motion to it means you can focus on things that you find interesting all of a sudden when you look in the sky and say, wow, what's that little speck that seems to be flittering around? You know, we might think it's a little ladybug or like bug, but who knows? Maybe it's a new planet, like you're talking about a lot of the high school kids finding.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the excitement is. The fact that it is not a technology or science or an engineering that's limited only to the people that are way up here in the spectrum, that it can be understood by kids that are in junior high school. And you know, what a concept that you come out of high school and you already know where you want to go and study more.
Yeah.
You know, that completely defeats the whole attitude that people have had, say, why are we dumbing down our education system? Why are we dumbing down our high school education system? Why are we dumbing down our college, where our bachelor's degree is now only equivalent to like a high school diploma? Well, you know, the thing is, they got a couple of these kids out there that are going to be geniuses, or they're going to redefine that definition of a genius.
We want those, we want those kids. I don't know if you attended it, but about 6-8 months ago, a fellow named Alex Filipenko came
Okay.
for IFA, and he is a teacher in Berkeley.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a very popular teacher, and he teaches astrophysics, which we
Wow.
haven't covered yet.
I don't know if we're going to cover that today.
That goes somewhere in that philosophical thing I was talking about. And there were kids, and it was a very complex speech. And I think of the people in the room, only a fraction knew what he was talking about. But then he entertained Q&A. And before you know it, the lineup of people were going to ask him questions. Well, nobody in the lineup was more than 10 years old.
Yeah.
all these kids, and then they would ask him these questions, and he would say, my goodness, that is a fabulous question. You want to go into business together? You want to write a paper together? You can have the first position on it. You can be the investigator.
Why not?
And they were brilliant, and these kids were like 6, 8 years old. So it shows you exactly what you were talking about. There are kids out there that get it intuitively, and they are able to focus their science and education to a white-hot spot on things like astrophysics. It's amazing.
I think one of the points you mentioned in that little scenario that really is important is the encouragement of kids to just think about ideas, because there's no reason to criticize the way kids think, because the way they think is probably the way we should all be thinking.
Open-minded.
Completely open-minded, no limits, no bounds. You know, the one bad thing about education, and you know, as a lawyer, you know, all the studying I did, is you get into a little cubbyhole.
It's true.
And it's hard to think outside the box because you've already been pre-programmed.
Right.
That it is wrong. Click,
I'll
stop.
give you a perfect example of that, and I think it exists all across the board. When we finished law school, we know what they taught us. We had to pass the exams, had to pass the bar, and all that. Now we're out there practicing. It's 6 months after we started practicing. Somebody comes in and says, the legislature has just changed the law. And there's a feeling of genuine resentment over that. Wait a minute, I studied it this way. I see it through the blinders of my own education. They're changing it? How could they do that?
How dare they?
How dare they? It just shows you that we are educated to lock in on the things we learn. Choi, Assistant Dean, College of Engineering at UH Manoa, in Holmes Hall. And here we are on ThinkTech TV, and we're having a MAD, which is a Monday afternoon discussion on a new world of astronomical engineering, and we will be right back for more. In fact, when we come back, we're going to talk about how those mirrors work. I need to know.
Hi, I'm Ethan Allen. I host Likeable Science on ThinkTech Hawaii, and I do this because I care about science literacy in Hawaii. I want to spread the understanding that science is a vital and interesting part of everyone's life. I want to make sure the broadest possible spectrum of people understand the beauty and the value of science and realize that science plays out each and every day of their lives. I want you to understand that science is fun. So we bring onto this show each week guests who are scientists, from astronomers to zoologists, and we talk about what they do and how they do it. But most importantly, we talk about why you should care about their work, why you should see that their work has value and impact on your life. So I hope you'll join us Fridays, 1 p.m. here on ThinkTech Hawaii. You can watch us via live stream. You can watch us recorded on Olelo, and you can see us each week. We hope you'll join us.
Okay, we're back. We're live. We're here with Choi talking about, what high school were you talking about?
Kalani High School.
Kalani High School. But the concept is that as we go forward on this and science becomes more complex, more demanding, then education of scientific matters actually filters down from the college and postgraduate level to the high schools and even lower than that. And these kids today are learning stuff which was all au courant in college only a few years ago.
So the whole concept of education, like this whole thing about telescopes, is really transforming. We're coming up with newer, bigger, better things. So we have a couple or some educators that are really articulate enough to get those concepts down to a younger group of kids. And what happens is the kids, as they understand, they have an easier time explaining it to their peers. So once that happens, that whole group down there,
Teaching themselves.
it's teaching themselves. And what better way as an educator than not to have to teach, but say, go find out about this concept. And the kids have such interest in that area, they're gonna go dig in the internet, no encyclopedias anymore, but the internet, and they'll find the answers. And I think that's great. I think one of the concepts I wanted to share with you, and that dealt with this whole thing about the telescope that we were originally going to only talk about, is that the development of a telescope also has a lot to do with innovation and entrepreneurship and creativity. Probably also to do with like this 30-meter telescope and all that. And one of the big things that's happening everywhere is this thing called makerspace. You've heard about it.
Sure, I've been there. You've been there.
yeah,
I met you there.
That's right. It's these little spaces where they have paper and all these little materials so they can come up with little models of things to do. And of course, the ultimate makerspace item is this thing called the 3D printer, which, Star Trek-wise, is a 3D replicator, right? You pop and something comes up and you
Make
say,
anything you want.
wow, I got my phone or I got my food. Nothing is complex anymore. Everything becomes visually easy to have perception on. So we have maker spaces that we're creating at the college level. And that's because we feel that many of the students have been cubbyholed and their creativity is going down. And the best way to enhance that creativity is to put them in a space where they can talk to not only engineers, but maybe an artist or a musician. New York City, what did they do? They got a fashion guy and an engineering guy together, and they had a 3D printer, and they decided to make a 3D printed dress.
Really?
Yeah. But you gotta have two opposite forces come together, make sound,
Yeah.
to come up with this explosion, which
Yeah.
is innovation.
Yeah.
As
Who
well
knows
as
where that
entrepreneur.
goes,
Yeah, that's
really?
right. And that's happening in all of the universities in the United States, also throughout the world. So with Kalani High School, I was there over the last week and part of the past weekend, and they have this thing called a solar mobile makerspace. So they had this solar trailer they used, had PV panels on there, so everything is green, it's not plugging into anything. So inside, they started putting things like 3D printers, small drill presses.
Coming to a street corner near you.
That's right.
It's
Coming
like
to a
the
street
ice
corner near
cream
you.
truck,
That's
except
right.
it's different.
That's right. So it's like that mobile library. Remember
Sure.
when they had the library and they were driving books around to different neighborhoods so you can pick out your favorite Dr. Seuss book and go through that thing and say, wow, I want the next one.
To see the kids
Yeah.
lining up.
Now you have one step farther. They're not only reading about it, they're creating with their hands. And we have a makerspace opening that's coming up in August at the College of Engineering as part of our electrical
It's an
engineering.
event.
Mhm. It's an event, and the event's there because it's not only for the engineering students, it's for the masses, it's for the community, it's for the art student, it's for the music student, it's for the business student, maybe even a law student. But
I'm
get
open.
everybody
You're
together.
chumming the waters.
That's right.
You're trying to excite them and ignite them and get them to think outside. It's really wonderful. So, so the whole thing about astronomy is kind of wonderful too, in the sense that you describe these mirrors, right, which are that big with a special
I
curvature.
think they're probably about that big.
Really, and they have to be polished in a certain way. They have to be brilliantly clear and clean.
Yeah.
It's like building a lens, and then you put them in this sort of big bucket affair, and each one is connected to a separate unit, and the separate unit has little motors on it to change the exact angle. And as the telescope swings around or changes position through that huge roof, which can turn in any direction, the mirrors have to turn, and because the whole 30 meters of
That's right.
telescope has to turn.
That's right.
And each mirror has to be part of a single, array of mirrors so that they can work together and give a white-hot focus
That's right.
image from something, 100 light years away. That's really hard. So somebody has to program the movement of those mirrors.
You got it.
I'll tell you, if you said to me, Jay, would you go out and program the movement of those mirrors? I would dedicate life to it. I would dedicate years and decades. I would give everything to do that because it sounds so sexy, so important, and so challenging.
Well, you got kids that are doing it right now. Right?
Really?
I mean, you got these, young middle school and high school kids. Middle school that comes to my mind is Highlands Intermediate, where they've done so well in these robot programming classes. When it comes to high school robotics and stuff, you got everywhere from Waialua to McKinley to Kalani, all these other schools, Sacred Hearts with their all-female students, robotics groups. They're coming up with robotics and programming that I learned in college, and they're doing it at middle school. I've seen some elementary school kids program.
Sure, why not?
Yeah, so
What you have to have is an open mind.
open mind and a sense of logic where you have this flow chart of how things are answered and what is, if I get to a little diamond and I have 2 or 3 answers, where do I go next and how do I answer that question? If you can think in that logical flow chart format, everything should be simplified.
This is humankind's best hour to do that. It's not politics.
No.
It's certainly not weapons and war. It's doing creative things like this to answer the questions posed by the universe.
Of course.
And one of the things the universe makes us do is take breaks from time to time. So,
That's
one of
called
those
physical time,
inimitable-
right?
It's a law of physics, you know, it's immutable.
So we haven't gotten to get rid of that 4th dimension yet.
That's Sung Choi, Assistant Dean of the College of Engineering, here on a new world of astronomical engineering. We'll be right back after this break.
Aloha, I'm Hunter Hevlin, host of Sustain here at ThinkTech Hawaii. You can tune in every week on Thursday at 2 p.m. to see interviews with sustainability professionals from around the state and even further abroad, learning about activities with water management, food security, waste management, and a whole host of other fascinating opportunities to get engaged with making a greener island. So if you're interested in making the transition from consuming individuals to communities of producers, check us out every Thursday.
Hi, my name is Sachiko Slomov. I'm the floor manager of ThinkTech Hawaii here. You can join us on the air every weekday from 1 to 5 or off the air at thinktechhawaii.com. We stream all of our videos and all of our amazing shows at thinktechhawaii.com or on our Ustream channel. You can also check us out on Twitter at ThinkTechHI or Instagram at ThinkTechHI also. I'll be listening, and I hope to see you there.
Okay, we're back, we're live, we're having fun, we're doing a MAD. That's a Monday afternoon discussion with Sung Choi, Assistant Dean of the College of Engineering, a good buddy in a new world of astronomical engineering this afternoon. Okay, I want to go further than the mirrors though, Sung
Okay.
Choi. So now we get this huge big 30-meter thing, which is 90 feet wide, and it's shining in exactly the right place in the heavens through various lenses that, you know, and it's going to reflect an image, a huge big image down to, you know, like a chip that big. And it's going to put that on lots of computer screens and all that in great high resolution detail. And so now we can see what that telescope sees in extraordinary resolution. You know, things that were impossible, you know, 15 years ago now are happening. So the question is, I look at this big monitor with this very high resolution. What do I do with it?
Discover. SAT word? No, I mean, think about the possibilities. We are so accustomed to seeing things with our naked eye. And we figured, oh yeah, we'll put some binoculars or magnifying glass and you get that little extra bit. Now you got this thing, 30-meter telescope with this moving mirrors that create that perfect angle to pick up the perfect light sequence. And then it goes into, like you said, a little chip where that can be magnified in multiple times and shown on the most high resolution monitors that you can find. And then you say, well, there's a dot there that we've never seen before. Is that a planet? Or is that dust? But the thing is,
It's really there.
Yeah.
We know it's there.
That's right. So they're going to start saying what we thought was a blank dark spot in space might not be the blank dark spot. And because of these technological developments, obviously it took a lot of math, it took a lot of science because it's a lot of materials and different types of materials that are going into this. A lot of engineering by working these things together so they can work in coordination. As you said, the programming of each of the components to move in sequence. That's pretty great development.
And get it perfect.
That's
And
right.
get 30 meters of it just perfect. I mean, there's a music there. It's a ballet. Every time they want to move the thing 1 inch, it's a ballet of 491 mirrors.
Yeah. Oh, I think that's incredible. You know, I remember, excuse me, when I forget which hotel it was in Las Vegas. They had the water moving around with the music.
Oh, yeah, I know the one you mean. Wait, I have it. It's coming. Bellagio.
Bellagio,
Thank
yes.
you. Thank you, control room.
See, technology. Instantaneous intelligence. There you go. But when we did that, everybody said, wow, how did they control all that water movement? And we sit there and go, well, you can do that. Why can't we control these 491 mirrors to be in sequence with each other to give you that optimum necessary production that you're looking for? It's performance, right? And maybe those things will bring up something that we've never seen.
Okay, now I'm going to give you a challenge point.
Okay.
Okay? So, I'm a local kid.
Okay.
I'm a local kid. I grew up on the Big Island.
Okay.
I went to Hilo
Okay.
High. There's a lot of smart guys who went to Hilo High,
Yes,
by
they
the
are.
way, you know.
Mhm.
Darren Kimura went
Yep.
there, the guy from Hoku,
Yep.
Hoku Scientific,
Dustin
Dustin Shindo
Shindo,
went
yeah.
there. Yeah, a lot of smart guys. Anyway, I went to Hilo High, or maybe in the Kona side, you know, what was it, Kealakekee High.
Okay, yeah.
And I don't know too much about astronomy. And you say, well, you know, we're going to accommodate you. We're going to bring you into our scientific process, and we're going to give you a job working with this 491 mirrors. And I say, you know, come on, don't pull my chain.
Yeah.
You're going to have me sweeping the floor. You know, this isn't really a job. You're just humoring me.
Okay.
But that's not really so, is it? Because if I get to be on the astronomy floor of that telescope, and I get to adjust those mirrors and adjust, you know, the lenses and the way the thing turns,
Mhm.
I'm having an experience that few people in this universe have ever had, and it's me. And I came from Hilo High, too, right?
That's right. Just looking at it, just being in the same room with technology like that, that should give you some sense of curiosity. Just ask one of the engineers or scientists, what does that do? And isn't
And he will answer
that's
you.
right. And isn't that
She will
the
answer
point
you.
we're trying to get to? Get the kids. Remember what I used to always tell you? I didn't bring robotics to Hawaii because I was going to teach all these kids how to do robotics. I brought it here with Art Kimura so we can expose kids to different technologies, different ways of thinking. The international competitions where people get together and work in groups with different perspectives, what that gives you is another heightened sense of curiosity and a new way of looking at how work can be accomplished.
So if I'm watching an engineer or an astronomical engineer go through this process, all I got to do is watch, and I see what happens, and it inspires me. It teaches me about the potential of engineering and astronomy, telescopes, what have you. What an
gotta start
experience
someplace,
that
right?
is. Yeah.
Gotta
but
start someplace.
There's no end.
Yeah. If
Could
we're-
be anything.
Yeah. If you're gonna teach a kid how to play ball, first thing you gotta do is take them outside and give them the ball.
Yeah.
And I think that's the first thing we're doing. We need to have more students exposed to these types of technologies. Be aware of how things are solved. Be aware of the fact that our solution may not be the only solution. You know, I mean, one of the things I've always pushed with many of the teachers and parents in high school is, if you get the opportunity, make sure you take that student outside of Hawaii. So if you are on the Big Island, I would definitely tell them, take them outside the Big Island. Maybe go to Honolulu. And then once you get there, I'll say, take them to LA, San Francisco, Boston, great place for engineering, right? New York. And then say, what about Europe? What about Asia?
Right.
It's limitless.
This is something we touched on. I mean, the fact that astronomy and telescopes are worldwide, and that you can find astronomical engineers every country.
Everywhere.
And it is an international sport for sure.
Yes.
And there are telescopes everywhere, although we happen to have one of the best locations.
We think the best one.
We think the best one. We think the best one. Partly
We won't be
because
biased. Which is
it's on the Big Island. There's so many wonderful things on the Big Island. But you know, the thing is that if I'm there and I'm a kid and I'm handling the dials of this huge big thing and talking to the engineers around me, I'm going to meet people who come from everywhere.
That's right.
You know, every consortium,
Consortium.
every country, every university,
Every discipline.
every discipline. Right, it's true. It's true. It's not just astronomers and engineers. It's everybody. Optics, you name it. It's all that stuff. And so I get to rub shoulders with the cream of science just by hanging around. And then I talk to them, and he's from Germany, for example, and he says, "Hey, how would you like a job in Germany?" And I say, "Yes." All of a sudden, I'm in an international strata of scientists, and I have such fantastic possibilities.
Doors you never knew existed open,
Yeah.
and path you never knew existed are all of a sudden visible.
Yeah.
And you learning something else to take and go into that space is a priority that you have to put in place.
Yeah.
So remember I used to tell you one time, I said, getting a bachelor's degree in engineering, doesn't matter if it's civil, electrical, mechanical, computer, is the first main key to opening that door to your house. All the other little doors in your house, the bedrooms, closets in the bedrooms, those are extra keys you're gonna have to find somewhere, whether it's experience or additional schooling. That's what gives you all the openness in the house.
The building blocks is the essential scientific concepts, you know. And that's why everybody who wants to go into science should go to engineering.
I think so, but
That's the classical approach to it, isn't it?
well, I think there are two approaches to it. I think to be a good engineer, you need a very good physics and a math background. But to be a good physicist and a mathematician as well, I think you need that curiosity that comes from being an engineer, where I can break something and put it back together and say, see, I told you I can do this. And I think that combination is where you see a lot of great people coming out. And hopefully we'll see more and more of that, because like I told you a long time ago, Hawaii, we don't have rough diamonds to polish. We have big pieces of coal that's just ready to be made into diamonds. And you know, what better place to be, because we can create the diamonds we want into the exact nature that we think they should be, so they are optimal to the
But
game.
you know what, Sung Choi? We have no time to waste.
Yep.
21st century is moving so fast. It's like here we are, and we're in late April already. We're in the second half of April, and it seems like the year only began a minute ago.
Yeah.
And it happens every year that way. And as I get older, it happens more every year that way. In the 21st century, we're already in 2015. It's going
right.
fast.
That's
And
right.
can we keep up with it? Can we compete with it? You know, things are moving so quickly on the mainland and in Europe and Asia. We have to be aware of that, and we have to keep up with it. And, you know, Hawaii and university, they have to do that too. And you can't take your hand off the stick for 1 minute.
No,
I had
you can't.
lunch with the vice mayor of Beijing a few years
Okay.
ago. And I said, isn't it wonderful, Vice Mayor, that in China, you know, 29% of the college graduates have studied engineering. They're engineering students. That is a wonderful thing. And it bespeaks of a generation of students that will be of great value to the country. And we know why you're doing that, because you know that engineers are so important in the development of an economy. And he said, thank you for those kind words. But in fact, it's not 29%, it's 59%. Okay. No, we can't keep up with that. We must learn to keep up with that.
So yes, you know, we have a huge shortage of engineers and people in the STEM area. And we're just realizing how important it is to understand those basic concepts of STEM. It's an everyday life thing. Engineering is something that you do every day. When I drove here, that's engineering. When we walk up and down stairs, that's engineering. Everything in here is engineering. And I'm sure all this stuff at one time was astronomical engineering because it was never being thought of. People look at this and they say, wow, that's a pen. That is technology. Especially if you compare it to the fact that we used to sit there and dip in that little ink bottle with the sharp feather-like thing.
I remember.
You know?
And there was a girl sitting in front of you, and you put her pigtails right there in the ink bottle. You remember that too, eh?
Of course. But that is great development. And engineering is something that we see in terms of development daily, on an hourly, on a minute, on a second basis. And you're right, everything is going fast. You know, but one thing I think we do forget as a human race, and the rat race, is I really think we forget to take a step back and reflect on what we've done. And maybe we need to do that once in a while so we can make that bigger step.
Right. And that's the reason to do it.
Mm-hmm.
The reason is to wait. I just want to wait, and I want to see where I am. I navigate myself, and I want to re-energize myself so I can get a better handle to go faster forward. Yeah. But let me offer you this thought. We only have a few minutes left, and suppose I give you the ghost of Christmas future.
Okay.
And suppose I tell you that the 30-meter telescope is overcome by whoever is opposing it now, even though actually they haven't opposed it for the 10 years it took to get their permit. And suppose I tell you that the people who would like to stop the telescope prevail for some combination of reasons. I cannot imagine that right now, but suppose that happens. And we don't have the 13th telescope. And the 12 telescopes that are up there in Mauna Kea start to get old, and we can't get to the 13th. We can't adopt new technologies. We can't offer new jobs. We can't connect up with a modern scientific establishment that exists all over the world. And suppose we lose touch, okay, with modern astronomical engineering. And I'll go further. Suppose we douse every every engineering project in the islands, every piece of science that goes further, that may contend in some way with Native Hawaiian spiritual, culture points, okay? And we stop doing that in favor of those culture points. What happens to us? Do you have an idea from the scientific point of view?
From a scientific point of view, I think that's very simple. If you halt development, then you're going to start regressing, right? And the whole thing is about progressing with the understanding of living with everything in harmony. You know, I love some of the sayings that we have here in Hawaii. Keep the country country. Well, then we really should keep the city city. And I think somebody in one of your panels said that that week. May have been Rubik, right? But I think that's true. Development is a continual thing. It's one of these momentum things. And if it's rolling, you need to roll with that development. Of course, we all don't know when it's going to stop. You know, I've always said that I think movie directors and producers are alien because they show us pictures of 50, 60, 70 years down the line, and they got these funny technologies that they use, and you wait 50, 60 years.
Comes true.
Wow, it's here. It's like the communicator from Star Trek. And so you sit there and you go, well, there must come a time when we're going to run head on into something that's going to halt technological development. And that's why I also think it's extremely important that you have to know fundamentals. People have said, oh, why do we need to write with the pen when everything we're going to be doing is inputting on a keyboard or a tablet? Well, because once you have this power outage, you don't have pads and keyboards. You're going to have to learn how to write to communicate. You're going to learn how to draw so you can show what you're doing. The further thing to that is, I don't think there's any better exercise in terms of hand-eye coordination than writing. I mean, God's genius, right? So the fundamentals have to be there, but the openness and the creativity and the allowing of kids to think and create and broaden their knowledge has to be there. And maybe 3-meter telescope is one of those things where you need to have kids look at it, understand it, where we become, as a state of Hawaii, a center of excellence, where people are gonna come here, not only to relax, but also to do work, find means of meeting some of the most intelligent people in the world, and on top of that, don't let us be a flyover.
Yeah, we don't want to be a flyer,
No.
but I think what you said, and when I synthesize this discussion, our mad discussion here at the end of the day.
It's a perfect word for it, right?
What I get is that this can and should be a collaborative effort by
Yes.
everyone. We don't want to have contention over this kind of thing. We don't want to be polarized in any way. This is something where we should come together. It should be excellent, and it should be ours. It should belong to all of us, everyone. And that's the message. That's the message of this show. That's the message of ThinkTech. How about it? That's Sung Choi, Assistant Dean of the College of Engineering, in a mad discussion, Monday afternoon discussion on a new world of astronomical engineering and aloha.